Hi, everybody. So today I want to talk about the Etsy Conversations podcast hosted by Ijama. This is a new podcast that I've discovered. Well, it was the first podcast I discovered. I'd never listened to one ever in my entire life, and I never understood why anybody would. So I was kind of researching Etsy related blogs and information just because I wanted to learn more about what other Etsy sellers were doing and what the climate was at Etsy. And I found this podcast, and so I gave it my first listen. And I'm typically used to just listening to music in my studio when I'm working, so it was really a different change for me in my studio as far as like the vibe that I had created, because usually it was music based on my mood, and I'm really big on setting up an environment in my studio with, candles, music, things that make me feel in my groove. So listening to a podcast was way out of my comfort zone, and I was like, okay, well, I'll try this because I don't have time to listen to it outside of working. There's just no time. So I'm going to work and listen to it and see if I can concentrate. And what I found is that while I was working, or while I was listening to the podcast, my workflow became less over-focused, and I kind of relaxed into what I was doing, and I really, really enjoyed it. And the next day I found that I had this craving to listen to another podcast, and because my workflow was just going better. So that is how I got started with the podcast, and I haven't stopped. Sometimes I go back and I re-listen to podcasts because most of her podcasts are about an hour long. They are really, really inclusive, and just they cover everything. They're so great. They're a really nice length of time. And what she does is interview Etsy sellers. Now she has other guests that, app developers or people that used to work at Etsy. She interviews all sorts of people. But what I love, my favorite, is when she interviews sellers, because I am so curious about other people that are doing what I'm doing on Etsy. But I'm kind of here isolated in my home studio, and I don't get to meet other Etsy sellers. So this is the closest thing to it. And Ijama is a great host. She asks really great questions that make you think to yourself. You ask yourself the same questions, like, oh, when was my first sale? How long have I been selling? Is my business profitable? Those type of questions. And she goes over a lot more than that. She goes over search engine optimization. She talks about marketing, advertising. There's all sorts, how designers stay motivated, how to time manage. She even has some accounting stuff in there, like, your taxes and stuff. So it's super, super great. And I'm hoping that you will all go out and just check it out. If you're an Etsy seller, go out there and check it out. Check out Ijama's podcast, Etsy Conversations podcast. I prefer to listen to it in iTunes, but there's a lot of other places that you can listen to it on. In fact, I'm going to provide the link to her podcast in my vlog for today. So you'll find that below or above. I can't remember on my website how that works. But anyway, okay, so that's it. I just want you to go give the podcast a try if you are an Etsy seller. And I'd love to hear from you and know what you think about that. Have a great day, you guys.